Tired of outdated marketing advice aimed at the industrial and manufacturing space? My name is Selim Malouf. Join me and my co-host Chris Carolyn as we deliver candid insights from growth-minded leaders, helping you drive results and tackle modern challenges. Cut through the noise to get no-nonsense expertise. Welcome to the Manufacturing Marketing Show. Customer research, customer interviews, voice of customer, whatever you choose to call it, this is something that many companies think that they're doing. But in reality, most are just trying to create a setting for hearing what they want to hear from their customers, for collecting testimonials, and ultimately for selling them more stuff. In today's conversation, our guest, a deep expert in voice of customer with well over 10,000 hours of customer interviews under his belt. We'll talk about what voice of customer work really is and how to do it right, and how to put what he calls customer outsights to work in a way that will benefit both you and your customers. Dave Loomis is the founder and president of Loomis Marketing, which provides consulting on branding, innovation, and digital transformation. Over his career, Dave has worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies, including DuPont, GE, Goodyear, IBM, Motorola, and Xerox. He's also counseled leaders and individuals on how to apply marketing best practices to themselves, strengthening their personal brands within their companies and communities. In 2020, Dave authored the book Marketing is Everything We Do, and since 2021 has been the co-host of the B2B Marketing and Sales podcast. Previously, Dave served as CMO at Dixon Eaton, one of the country's largest independently owned PR firms. There, he helped clients craft their brands and helped individuals proactively manage their public reputations, especially in the digital world. For 15 years, Dave worked at the holding company office of NACCO Industries, a $3 billion public diversified company. Dave began his career in Chicago at Leo Burnett, one of the world's largest ad agencies. He attended Northwestern University as an undergrad and graduate student, obtaining his MBA from Kellogg, consistently rated as the top business school for marketing. Hello, David. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So, Dave, one of the first things we do when we are helping industrial manufacturing companies with their messaging is voice of customer research. Ask our customers to choose a sample set of their customers that is willing to do an interview with us. At this point, we hit our first education challenge, where we need to explain what voice of customer is and how it is not simply an NPS score or, a testimonial for marketing. So, Dave, could you explain to our listeners what voice of customer is?
Well, do we have 3 hours for this? No, I'm just kidding. First of all, before I specifically answer that, the fact that you suggest talking to customers as a first step as you're working with your own customers, that is fantastic. I wish more service providers or sellers of anything would do that, because we can learn so much from that. And there's so many names for it. And I think there's a lot of misinterpretation. There's misunderstanding. There's probably fear. People are scared when they hear voice of customer. The smaller the company or the less experienced they are with it, the more fearful they can be. And I think it comes from a lot of places, really. We can talk about that. But how I define voice of customer is any kind of purposeful conversation with a customer that has an objective that is at least partially open-ended, so that the customer can bring up things that we might not expect, and we can listen. That's where their voice comes in. And I think I'll leave it at that. It doesn't have to be complicated, to be honest. And so anybody that's listening, don't be intimidated by this, because it can be short, it can be long, it can be over the phone or Zoom or in person. But the most important thing is to do it, as you well know.
Some of the common challenges we have heard, both when we were internal at these companies and working with clients, is why don't we have the sales teams, talk to the customers? And like they're usually focused on closing the sale. They have not been successful in providing that voice of customer research that we usually need. What is your experience in trying to circumvent this process and getting sales to do it instead?
Well, I, I I'm going to say that I don't necessarily disagree with the pushback, because salespeople are hardwired to sell. We love them. We want them. If we just said, hey, no more salespeople, or at least no more people that are like their brains are just like set on, they hear a problem, they find a solution that we have to sell, they overcome objections, all those good things. We need that. We love that. But in many cases, that skill set is not the same as the skill set of sitting there in front of a customer or talking to them and asking open-ended questions about unmet needs, or just kind of discovery. And part of it's training. I'm not going to say that it's impossible for salespeople to do voice of customer work or that kind of interviewing, but I think it's unfair for us to rely on them to do that, to be perfectly honest with you. And I mean, unless you're a company, hey, okay, if you're a company of one person and let's take the extreme, and you're everything, you're the president, you're the salesperson, or whatever, and you're the only person that can do the voice of customer, okay, do it. Or maybe even in that case, hire somebody to do it. But usually the firms we work with, even if it's a pretty small company, they're going to have somebody that is not a salesperson. They might be a product manager or an engineer or a marketing person. Even if it's not a technical marketing person, it might be a marketing communications person. And sometimes it's great to have a different person do that interviewing and get that input. The other reason is salespeople have close relationships. That's where part of this fear comes from. And they, especially if they've been, calling on somebody for a while, they have this relationship, and they know a lot of things about their customer's business. So they actually don't want to appear to be misinformed. And so they're scared to ask what they would refer to as dumb questions, and hear the customer say, well, you should know the answer to that. Why are you asking me that? So, in those cases, there's all sorts of training that we do, for those cases, because that can be overcome as well with things like, well, hey, I know I should know the answer to this question, but I really want to hear the answer in your words. Why does it work like that? Or why do you do that step in the process? And you kind of, chuckle your way through it, and it's very well accepted. But the bottom line, to answer your question, is it's just not a slam dunk to have a salesperson do this work. So if you really want, if that's the only option, then I would just say, help that salesperson before to get trained up a little bit, even if it's a crash course.
It's funny you mentioned dumb questions. It's because that's exactly the reason why companies seem to not let marketers talk to customers. Like, no, the sales teams own the relationship. We don't want you to say or ask a stupid question that we already are talking about, and you would mess up our relationship. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's I completely agree, Dave. Sales has a very specific job, and we want them to be very, very good at that job. And for both sides of those conversations, customer and salesperson, honest, open feedback sessions often, get in the way, like confuse communications. So to Selim's point, if we want sales focused on sales stuff, we also have had the challenges of, okay, sales also owns the relationship and they can be very protective of that relationship. So how do we, maybe soften them up to kind of open it up for, hey, this is in your best interest if we can understand this, but you're not going to have the usual amount of control over the situation.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really nice about like a true voice of customer session is that you can tell the customer that you're going to promise them that you're not going to sell anything, and you promise them that you're not going to solve anything. In other words, you may express something in this meeting, and we already have the product or service, but we're not going to tell you about it because that's not why we're here. And also, if you say something and one of our engineers happens to be there, or I am that engineer, we're not going to take the time to try and work through the solution in this meeting. And I think that if you tell like that salesperson or relationship manager more about what that meeting's going to be like, and also give examples of what great output has happened in the past, they warm up to it. And I'll tell you, they really warm up to it after doing one, and the customer ends up saying, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Do you have an extra hour? Or, let's do this again. Or this was like one of the best meetings I've ever had. When they say that, hey, game on, because, that's what salespeople want to hear.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, we're all on the same team, hopefully going after the same goals, right?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's a slam dunk with every salesperson to get them over that hurdle. Sometimes, you just have to say, look, we're going to do this. You've got to trust us to do this, and if we screw up, then we won't do it again, and we'll be sorry, but that's not going to happen. You'll see.
Well said. So to that point, let's say we're aligned now and we know we need to do some real VOC. We're excited to have you on today to talk about, your new framework. And for me, the first time I heard it, I thought it was brilliant. I love looking at things in a new way, especially when it's a, seemingly well-known topic that isn't actually well-known. Wordplay and the nuance of the wording that you're using. Like, I just love it. So I'd love for you to, break that down for us.
Yeah, sure. So this concept came about that I'm writing a new book on this topic and starting my own podcast on the topic as well. And we'll be writing about it. I've started doing that. It came to me because of the overused word insight. And people are even naming their research departments the insights department. And they're saying that they're customer centric and they're doing all these different things and they're getting these insights. And I just heard it so much, except I started hearing it from companies that I actually didn't really even think were necessarily all that customer focused. And I was kind of baffled by all that. And then I finally came to understand that even if customers sort of check the box on doing voice of customer research, that they're still doing it from their own perspective. Why are they doing it? They're doing it because someone told them that if they are more customer oriented or do this VOC, that they're going to make more money for themselves. They're going to sell more. They're going to make more money. They're going to do better for them. And so when they look for insights, they're looking for insights that are going to help themselves, right?
Yeah.
Not their customers. And so I started thinking about this word insight, and I realized that it's like the combination of two words, in and sight, as in like inward, as in, oh, we want this for us from an inward standpoint. So I came up with the word outsight. And I'm thinking, okay, what can that really mean? Because I know what I believe is true from doing so much of this. And that is that there's really two kinds of companies out there. One, like the kind I said, who it's all about them. How do I make more money? And hey, that doesn't mean that they don't have a product or service that isn't valuable and that sells. They're still in business. People are buying something, so they got something. But they're doing it for them. There's another kind of company, and there aren't as many of them, but there can be many, many more. And that's, hey, I'm totally devoted to you as a customer, or customers plural. And I want to know what are you doing? How do you use what we supply to get your job done and to serve your own customers and to complete the task that you're doing? Because at the end of the day, everything that we in the B2B world, everything we provide to another business is a tool for them to help get their job done. And if we say, hey, I'm dedicated to that, to helping you do that, then my success will follow, guaranteed, because then we're sensitive to that. We're devoted to it. And that could drive our innovation too, because if we really believe that, then we're always asking them about their job, and we know about what they're doing and how we can help them even more. So the outsight concept that I have is, and it may be semantics a little bit, but if I picture like binoculars or the spyglass, and this is like the one kind of a company that's like very self-centered and looking out, oh, let me see, let me look closer and see what I can learn to help me. But with outsight, what I am suggesting is you take these binoculars or this spyglass and you hand it over to the customer, and you let that customer use it and look through it and tell you what they see, because it's about the customer's perspective. That's what we have to try to get to when we're doing our voice of customer, is getting to how our customer views things, not how we view things, or not how we really understand our customers' business. It's really more about them, how they view us, how they view the marketplace, how they view the tasks that they're trying to accomplish, and then how we can help them. And there's lines of questioning that I believe, there's a process that I believe we can follow to get that outsight. And then everybody wins. They win because we do a better job for them, and we win because we've done a good job, and then our sales are good. So that's
a tough ask. That's a tough ask, to basically ask them to see their true form. We've heard it a lot. As long as nobody's complaining, we're good. We can keep on doing what we're doing. But me and Chris, we talk a lot about, like, customers are settling the moment that someone provides them with the experience that they were expecting. They're going to stop settling with you. So you should be able to be strong enough to do exactly that. Take a look at yourself, how your customers see you, and fix those problems preemptively before somebody else, does for you.
Well, that is very interesting comment. I appreciate that. And, you don't want to be the one with your head in the sand. Even if you do have okay sales, you don't want to be sort of, pretending like everything is okay, or scared to hear the truth, whatever that truth might be. I think I'd rather find it out now than later when it's too late.
You'd think that people would want that. Um,
You would think.
so, I love, you know, so much can be, I guess, oversimplified to semantics and wordplay. But I think when you watch over the years, just customer centricity, customer experience, customer success, all these new phrases to come into the spotlight. And, for industrial manufacturing, it's very easy for them to write off things like that from what I've seen, like as just like the word of the day, the buzzword, right? So I think like, the semantics is just a different way to get them, to think about the situation, especially when they have adopted a word like insights and clearly, are using it a certain way. Adding a new version of insights is not going to really move the needle usually. So it might be semantics, but I think it can be really powerful. At the very least, it gives you an opportunity to explain what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's right. I do, and even if it just sort of gets their attention, and they listen to it, and some people can learn this very simple process, and that can be helpful. And they're welcome to continue calling it whatever they want, as long as it's directed for the right reasons.
Yeah, for the right reasons is absolutely right. Like the intention behind all this stuff, and if we can take them there and galvanize that understanding, then we're in a much better place to get to these. Your framework, which I love. Pretty simple words on the surface, but combine them in this order. It should be simple to follow and with very powerful results. So, you mind taking us through each step?
Yeah, sure. So it's going to be fun because I've created an actual visual, like a compass. It's 3 concentric circles with a bullseye in the middle, and sort of 4 quadrants. So if you picture a compass as having different points, north, south, east, west, this would have sort of 4 quadrants. And each of the 4 quadrants is labeled, and then each of those has 3 different sort of steps to it. But the four big steps are all start with the letter F: fix, focus, find, and fuel. The first one, fix, you sort of think our brain goes to that something's broken, we need to fix it. But the origin of the word, it originally has to do with fixing your sights on something. And so by fix, we mean to actually set your objective for your voice of customer work. So I think one of the other problems that comes up is that companies will say to that salesperson or whoever it is, "Oh, go out and do some voice of customer. Find out what they're thinking." That's not an objective. And that's another reason why it maybe is not effective, and also people are fearful of it. But if you go out and you have an objective and you say, look, we say this about ourselves on our website and we make these key points. Can you go find out, what do customers think? Why do they buy from us? What do they think our value proposition is? And what 3 words would they use to describe us? I mean, now that's a specific ask, and you can go out and ask that. So I think you need to set an objective. You need to determine who you're going to be talking to, because most people's customer bases have different segments in them. And so is this going to be a case where you want sort of a sprinkling of information from a whole bunch of different segments, and that would actually make sense to you? or would that be confusing based on your objective? If your objective is about new product development and to get some input on a new product, well, that sprinkling of segments might be, you'd have to talk to, a huge sample. But if it's very focused on, on an application of your product or service, or a certain type where there's similarities between the customers, that's what I mean by segment, then that can be very appropriate in that case. So you want to set your objective, and you want to set your, your segment. And then there's logistics to setting up the meeting with the specific people. It's important to get the right people in that meeting. So that's the fix part. The focus part is actually about the meeting itself. And you mentioned the word intention before, and that's actually one of my words. That's the first key to that section of focus. You have to go into that meeting with a certain intention. And that intention is really to help them, not you. That's the simplest way of putting it. And then you have to pay attention. That's the second word. And then your questions themselves are really the most important part of that. And if you may have some ulterior motives for talking to the customers, you want to bounce something off of them, that's fair game. But don't start with that. Start open-ended. If it's like the value proposition work, let's say that, your company claims that it's, high quality, high tech, high touch, or something like that. Let's say that's the phrase that's on the homepage, right? Don't go in there and say, so, this is what we say on our homepage. Do you agree with this? Or, in fact,
that's leading the witness, basically.
Oh, you've heard. It could be even worse. You could say, I'm sure you agree with this, because I provide you with this service all the time, right? And they're not going to insult you to your face. So they agree, and blah, blah, blah. Start off with, remember when, you went through this decision process a couple of years ago and you hired us? What was going through your mind? Why did you end up hiring us? And there's more questions and back and forth and so forth. And then you could say something like, so, why do you stick with us? Or, what 3 words actually come to mind that describe us? Let them tell you. Then after that, you can say, hey, our phrase on our website, if you've been there and it says, high quality, high tech, high touch. What do you think of that? Do you think that really reflects us? You've already found out what's really in their brain. So by this time, if they haven't said those things already, then they'll be like, well, I said before, you're really not high tech, it's, sort of table stakes, but that's fine, So you learn a lot from that. So that's the fix and focus. The find is about the analysis stage. So we've got planning, we've got the meeting, we've got analysis, which is, you've got, let's say you do a few of these interviews, you've got a lot of great notes, you've got a lot of things to go through. What are the patterns? What are the stories that are coming out of that are in common? And then, did you find any gemstones? Did you find anything that, like, you've never heard before and surprises you, and it seems like something you might be able to use to help them? And so that's the analysis stage and the find. And then the fuel is, these are all verbs, and you're going to use what you found to fuel success. Whose success? Well,
the customer's success.
First, the customer's success. Ours will follow. But, use what you've learned to help. And somewhat selfishly, We can use that in our own content and our marketing. We've got lots of verbatim understanding now of how customers talk, what the words they use. Take verbatim notes when you're doing this. Don't paraphrase. Just write down or record as much as you can, so that you're really getting it from, that's part of their perspective, hearing their real voice. So those are the main steps of the process. And hey, it's not rocket science, really. And you can, I know one company that's based in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland, where I'm from, and they have 50 formal voice of customer teams going at one time. It's a big B2B company.
That's big, yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. Don't worry. If you're a small business owner, you're a small manufacturer or a medium-sized manufacturer, I mean, even the biggest companies don't have that. That's unusual. You can just start by putting your toe in the water, see how it is, go out there, and start the conversations. And they can be short, and informal if you want, and as long or as formal as you want.
Yeah. I love it. Like, again, it's simple. But what's interesting and just came to mind as you were going through it is, like, of the four, find is always going to happen. Like, you're going to find stuff. And when you do any kind of research like this, the key is that the rest, right? Like, you got to make sure what you're finding is worth a damn. And if you don't have the fix and focus on point, you're going to find a bunch of stuff that won't matter, and you might spend a lot of money on, or you might make some pretty bad decisions. And then the last one rang true is, after you found it, okay, what now? Like, you're just going to stow it away in the old customer feedback, repository and feel good that you can check VOC off the list. So definitely key. And I love how these work together. So thank you for breaking that down.
Me and Chris, we have been championing the need for customer centricity and meeting the modern buyer expectation. For us, it's an intuitive concept that is validated by a small sample size from both of our experiences. But we mentioned in your intro that you have more than 10,000 hours of customer interviews under your belt. Based on your research, how would you describe the quote-unquote modern customer, and what are the table stakes they expect in a modern buying experience?
That's a fantastic question. I think it's a moving target for sure. So what may be modern may have been modern a few years ago is not modern now. And same with, a decade ago, a couple decades ago. And I have, my customer interviewing started, I hate to say it, but before the internet was really an active part of business life. So there were no websites and those sort of things. So that kind of customer, especially in the B2B world, was much more reliant upon the knowledge and information that they got from distribution channels, for sure, and from sales forces, and from good old-fashioned printed material, whether it's brochures or catalogs or that sort of thing. Over the past several years, what 30 years or what have you, we've had, the advent of the ability to access so much information, to the extent now that B2B buyers, a lot of research says that a B2B buyer is 60, 70, 80% of the way through their decision before they ever actually contact a company from a sales point of view. So that is way different. On our own side as company, owners or manufacturers, the great, element that we have is that we have the ability to publish our own content and we can, which is fantastic. We can do that. So we should do that with intention and care and so forth. So the modern buyer is going to be very informed. We should go into a situation assuming that they are well informed already, and we should, I think, assume that they've done their homework. So they know something about our competition. They know something about their situation. Of course, they know more about their own, situation than we do. So we should not be, overconfident necessarily about how much we know about them before we learn about them. I think the modern buyer is under pressure to buy things, at a fair cost, a low cost. But the modern buyer still appreciates human touch and still wants to buy from people that they like and trust. And so what does that mean for us? I think for us, that means we need to do our homework, and we need to make a case for our value proposition, whether it's initial purchase price or overall cost of ownership, and proving out ROI and being able to put that ammunition in the hands of buyers so that they can then go to their management and explain why they're paying a little bit more than just the commodity, low cost price. And then coupled with that, all this talk about AI, all this talk about, how automated everything is and technology and all that, that's great. That's going to be there. Customers are going to use that. But I am absolutely convinced that in the coming years, more than ever, people are going to appreciate people, human beings. And so what does that mean for us? So we got to prove our ROI, and then we got to build a real relationship. We got to care about these people,
Yep.
And, what does that mean? That means, hey, when you get on a Zoom with them, do you launch literally right into, whatever your pitch is without any kind of introduction and talk nonstop? Or do you ask them where they're located or something about the guitar and their Zoom background? And before you know it, you've learned about their family and their kids playing some sport or something that will connect you to them, and vice versa. So it's not all business, it shouldn't be.
You've mentioned AI, and me and Chris, we view AI as a tool, and like many other tools, it's ripe for misuse, but we believe it's there to automate the busy work so we can focus on relationship building.
I couldn't agree more. I actually use AI as I would use, say, an assistant. And I actually speak to the AI prompt in that way. I give the prompt instructions and background and context, and just the way I would like actually verbalize it to someone sitting across my desk who I'm asking them to help me with something. Because the more background you can give somebody, the better they're going to be able to do it and deliver it in the way that you want. I think a lot of people don't even think that AI. I mean, if you had an assistant and you were giving them instructions, you would also tell them what format you wanted in back. But
Correct.
people don't realize you can do that in AI, and it can save you a lot of time. But yes, we can go down the AI rabbit hole. But yes, it's human relationships. I think will be even more important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you put it that way about, we have to care as businesses about, about these relationships and these, prospective buyers. And the real challenge is you got to care before they raise their hand to buy, right? And that's where, you know, um, they understand these tools exist. So while our interaction shouldn't be all business, the business needs to be taken care of by the website, by the information, by all the other information that so they can do their research, while also meeting their B2C, expectations of, you know, value, quick speed, all that stuff. So it's not without challenge, and it's not the easiest thing, which again is why you can make it easier for yourself by going through, this customer outside framework, because they'll tell you exactly what you can do to help them and to serve these needs. It doesn't have to be a black box. So understanding those expectations and this framework, what can they do? What can orgs do today to, think about organizing around this, like actually executing it? Because that's what I find to be the hard part. There's a lot of frameworks out there, but what's missing is it's just so brand new for some companies. Who's in charge of this? How do we execute? What's the best way to review? How do we measure it? Things like that. So what have you seen, work, or what are your recommendations for teams that really want to take this seriously?
Yeah, I've got a couple suggestions, and it depends on how deeply you want to go into it. So it can, as I said earlier, I think it can be informal as you want, or as formal as you want. So, I'll start with informal, which is sort of easy at one end of the spectrum. If you just want to get started, you can have you can assign a person or have a couple people as a team contact a few customers and ask them if, as long as you get your objective and you've got a why you're doing this, then have a conversation with them that is, as I said earlier, open-ended at the first part. And then if there's some specific things you want to ask, then ask that next. And the analysis doesn't have to be really all that intense. I think that, most of these meetings that I've ever come out of, either I think it in my head, or if I'm with another person, they would say, like immediately following the meeting, "Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Did you hear what he or she said about X? I've never heard that before." So sometimes even those gems just like pop right out of the ground and they're and they're right there in your face, which is great. So I wouldn't worry about overcomplicating any one of these stages when it comes to the most informal. So then I'll touch on something that's a very formal way of doing it. There's a process called new product blueprinting. This is if, let's say that your voice of customer work really you want to focus it. Your objective is on new products or enhancing current products, and you want those unmet needs associated with those, so that you can direct R&D to on what to do specifically. So there's this process called New Product Blueprinting out of the AIM Institute. And that actually has software that goes along with it that facilitates the meeting. There's a more intense process. There's involved in that software is projecting it during the meeting, either on Zoom or in person, where you've got sort of these digital sticky notes that you're typing verbatim notes onto. And now that in that case, when the meetings are finished, you can have it mine your data to pull out. And actually there's some new AI plugins for that. That's a perfect practical application for that, to help with the analysis. And that works great. And there's actually even more parts of that process where, you could go back a second time and prioritize things that you've heard, so that you're, working on trying to solve, just the most important unmet needs. They would be ones that are highly important, yet but low current satisfaction in their ability to whatever whatever that problem is. And then that can go into the stage gate process of, of your manufacturing company, for product development. So to me, to answer your question, there's informal at one end of the spectrum and formal, and there's all sorts of things in between. And, I conduct personally lots of these types of interviews. And I also train companies in multiple methodologies of how to do it, from that sort of informal all the way to the formal.
I have a question. Since me and Chris were more focused on the industrial and manufacturing space, I'm interested in hearing if you've noticed any specific patterns or, gems or things that are typical of the industrial and manufacturing space that are not too common otherwise.
Well, with manufacturing, it depends a little bit. Let's assume that the company that is conducting the voice of customer, for their customer, they're a manufacturer of something. Now, when in B2B, obviously, that could be a product, a full-blown finished product that another company uses. But it also could be an ingredient in a product that another company makes. And so I would divide those two things in my head a little bit first in answering your question, because the finished product, I think that part, there aren't a lot of surprises or commonalities, because it's not a consumer buying that product. Let's say it's a power drill, but it's a special kind of drill that's only used in industrial applications or job sites, and no consumer, they're not buying it at Home Depot or anything like that. And maybe it's made by, one of the, big manufacturers, a big B2B company. There's going to be, I think, less surprises there. But when you're selling something that somebody else uses to incorporate in their product, then you get then that's where I think most of the really interesting stuff comes out, in that there's process improvements that you can maybe help them make when you really understand how is it that you're, at what stage, and let me watch your production process, and let me ask you these questions about this. There's some amazing things that happen there. And the other thing is, you can don't limit yourself to just, like we say, voice of customer, the word customer's in there, but it could be your customer's customer. There's a whole value chain here of sales that trickles down, and it could go beyond that. And so when you are interviewing, think about going past your direct customer and then bringing back that insight to your direct customer. Not in a roundabout way, like that they would be suspicious of you or you're trying to go around them or anything like that, but in a a constructive way.
That's so well said. And ultimately that's why insights like that are why we're doing this podcast, because I think there's so much opportunity in understanding the supply chain and the value chain better and the roles that each company plays. It's easy for the smaller guys to just assume that the bigger guys, have all the leverage and, all this stuff. But when you can bring, your insights to them and help them save, just like you're helping your customer, whoever the end user customer is, like that can have a big impact to their business. And now, things even out, and there's huge opportunity for companies just to partner better. I think in that department. So I'm so happy you brought that up.
Yeah. And just here's another very practical tip. It has to do with the C in VOC and voice of customer. So I like to say that there's lots of C's in VOC. So typically when I do projects, the first thing I'll do is interview people from the company. So that is voice of company, right? And because it's a good starting place to get yourself smart, and even if it's your own company, it's like, oh, let me go talk to other people. Remember my example about the value proposition, like why do people really buy from us? And, is this catchphrase we have, is that really reflective of what we are? So go around and ask some people in your own company and ask them open-endedly, hey, why do you think people buy from us? Why do you think this? Why do you think that? Then there's another C in VOC, which is channels. Then go to your channels of distribution. So if you sell through distributors, reps, wholesalers, even retailer, whatever, go to them next, because you're still trying to get smarter, and then go to the customer. I mean, you could argue that there's a competitor in there, a C for competitor, and you might not feel comfortable doing your own competitor interviews per se, but you could do competitor research and draw a map of what you think the market might look like. So that's another C. So I could probably keep going all day with different C's in VOC.
Well, Dave, this was an amazing conversation, and we would love to, keep that conversation going. If people enjoyed this and want to work closely with you, where can they find you?
Sure. I'm very easily findable on LinkedIn. I am also at loomismarketing.com. You can find my current book on Amazon. That's called Marketing is Everything We Do. And it's how serving others brings success in business and in life. And so that one really is sort of the foundation piece for going into Customer Outsight, and that mindset shift that we want to get, that it's serving others. Email me, call me, Dave at loomismarketing.com. It's pretty simple. And I love talking to people and meeting new people and helping. And, cause I try to drink my own Kool-Aid too. So,
Kool-Aid, yeah.
It's not about me. It's about me helping you.
And if you've missed any of that, we'll have links in the description. Make sure to follow Dave. He has great content on LinkedIn, and also follow me and Chris. And thank you for listening, and see you in the next one.
Take care. Thanks for having me.